with Levin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, let me thank both our chairman and our vice chairman for their steady and their determined leadership of this effort, and also add my thanks to Eleanor Hill and her staff for their extraordinary effort. Mr. Chairman, after months of investigation and numerous joint inquiry hearings, both open and closed, a fair reading of the facts has led to a deeply troubling conclusion. Prior to September 11th, the U.S. intelligence officials possessed terrorist information that, if properly handled, could have disrupted, limited, or possibly prevented the terrorist attacks. At crucial points in the 21 months leading up to September 11th, this intelligence information was not shared or was not acted upon, and as a result, numerous opportunities to thwart the terrorist plot were squandered. I've put up here a blue chart and handed to each of you copies of those charts, which track two of the hijackers, al-Midhar and al-Hazmi, who were the hijackers of American Airlines Flight 77, which attacked the Pentagon. I understand from Mr. Mueller's prior testimony of September 25th that the travel of the 12 terrorists who constituted the, quote, muscle, close quote, for the 9/11 hijackings may also actually have been coordinated by al-Midhar. The charts contain in chronological order well-established and well-known facts. The backdrop is that we know that in 1998 the CIA had essentially declared war on bin Laden and on al-Qaeda. Then in December 1999 there was a heightened state of terrorist alert due to the Millennium celebration. That was the environment in which the failures occurred. An intelligence report was sent to the CIA and the FBI identifying 4 al-Qaeda operatives with links to the East African U.S. Embassy bombings and stating that they were planning to meet in Malaysia. The Malaysia meeting was of significant importance, so much so that not only was the FBI notified, but the director of the CIA was briefed about that meeting on numerous occasions. The CIA monitored the meeting in Malaysia, which took place from July 5th to July 8th, 2000, 20 months before September 11th. And as a result of the monitoring, the CIA learned some important information. On January 5th, the CIA knew the full name of one of the attendees, and what they knew was an al-Qaeda operative's meeting. His name was Midhar. The CIA also had his passport information, including a multiple entry visa for the U.S. Our staff has concluded that that information was not distributed to the FBI, but there's some dispute about that. On January 9th, the CIA learned the full name of Hazmi, another attendee at the al-Qaeda operatives meeting, and learned that Hazmi had left Malaysia on January 8th with Midhar on the same flight, seated together. But with this information and this state of concern, this high-level state of concern and a declaration of being at war with al-Qaeda, the CIA did not put either Hazmi or Midhar on the watch list. And again, according to our staff conclusion, the CIA did not tell the FBI all that the CIA knew, including that Midhar had a multiple entry visa to the U.S. I want to first focus, Mr. Tenet, on the question of the watch list, which you've talked about in your testimony. What reasons specifically here? I don't want just a general answer here that there was a lot of workload and so forth, but what reason was given specifically by the CIA person responsible for putting that name on the watch list as to the failure to do so?
For not putting the name on the watch list. Our judgment is in talking to everybody working at the time that there were uneven standards, poor training, and we didn't give them...
For that specific failure? All those reasons for that specific
Yes, sir,
failure?
we did not. Everybody, the people involved, or people who have access, who we've talked to, acknowledge that there were uneven practices, bad training, and a lack of redundancy. The fact that they were swamped does not mitigate the fact that we didn't overcome that with either redundancy, a separate unit, or better training.
Have you identified the person or persons who are responsible to put that name on the watch list?
We know who was working this case.
My question is, though, do you know the name or names of the persons who are responsible for putting those names on the watch list? That's my question.
Yes, sir, I think I have.
All right. Now, then we come to March 5th, same year, 2000. And the CIA learns some additional information, very critical information. On March 5th, the CIA learns that Hazmi had actually entered the United States on January 15th, 7 days after leaving the Al-Qaeda meeting in Malaysia. So now the CIA knows Hazmi is in the United States, but the CIA still doesn't put Hazmi or Midhar on the watch list and still does not notify the FBI about a very critical fact. A known Al-Qaeda operative, we're at war with Al-Qaeda, a known Al-Qaeda operative got into the United States. My question is, do you know specifically why the FBI was not notified of that critical fact at that time?
The cable that came in from the field at the time, sir, was labeled information only, and I know that nobody read that cable.
But my question is, do you know why the FBI was not notified of the fact that an Al-Qaeda operative now was known in March of the year 2000 to have entered the United States? Why was the CIA? Why did the CIA not specifically notify the CIA? That's my question. The FBI.
Sir, if we weren't aware of it when it came in the headquarters, we couldn't have notified them. Nobody read that cable in the March time frame.
So that the cable that said that Hazmi had entered the United States came to your headquarters, nobody read it?
Yes, sir. It was an information-only cable from the field, and nobody read that information-only cable.
Should it have been read?
Yes, of course, in hindsight.
Should it have been read at the time?
Of course it should have been read.
All right, my question is, do you know who should have read it?
I don't know that, sir, but I can find that
Was somebody responsible to have read it?
Well, a group of people, somebody should have read it, yes,
All
sir.
right.
We need to also look at where it came into, but I can find that out.
You don't know who that person was?
I do not.
Should they have been watch listed at the time, both of them? Now we're talking March of the year 2000.
Yes, sir, we've acknowledged that fact.
Okay. Do we know why in that specific time? Now we know that Hazmi has entered the United States. This is another trigger point.
Yes, sir.
They should have been watch listed. Who was responsible for watch listing at that time?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I will
right.
provide an answer.
Next, on October 12th, 2000, bin Laden operatives attacked the USS Cole. The FBI, which investigated that attack, learned that a bin Laden follower, Khalid, was the principal planner of the Cole bombing, and that two other participants in the Cole conspiracy had delivered money to Khalid at the Malaysia meeting. Now, the FBI told the CIA about those facts. That information came from the FBI to the CIA. CIA went back, reviewed the facts that they had about the Malaysia meeting again. And as a result of that review, in January of 2001, the CIA determined that Khalid had actually been at the Malaysia meeting and that Midhar and Hazmi, then, they knew, you knew, had been involved with the planner of the Cole bombing. Actually been with the planner of the Cole bombing at the Malaysia meeting. CIA again failed to put either Hazmi or Midhar on the watch list or to notify the FBI that Hazmi was in the United States. And my question is, do you know who was responsible for that failure?
Sir, can I take you back on
Sure.
your facts for a moment? First of all, in terms of the identification of Khalid, actually it was the FBI who provided the information to us because we were in a joint meeting at the time at a third country because we were running a joint case with somebody who identified Khalid. And indeed, in January of 2001, the legal attaché from this third country writes messages to both our headquarters that after having been shown the surveillance photos of Kuala Lumpur, he made an identification of Khalid.
I think that's
So at that point, sir, both the CIA and the FBI know that Midhar was in Malaysia and that in this time period, and that Khalid was in Malaysia at this time period as well.
Now that's irrelevant to my point. What you did not notify the CIA of at that point,
No, the FBI.
excuse me, but you did not notify, thank you, the FBI of at that point, is that you knew that Hazmi was in the United States.
That's correct, sir.
That's January now of 2001. Another failure.
Sir, there are 3 instances, as I note in my testimony, on 3 separate
question,
occasions.
I know. My question, do you know who was responsible to notify the FBI at that time?
I don't, but I will find out for you.
Now we have a meeting in the year 2002 in New York City. And this is a meeting of a CIA analyst and FBI officials from the New York field office, which was the office investigating the Cole bombing and the FBI headquarters, including the FBI analyst on detail to the counterterrorist center at the CIA. The FBI agents on the Cole bombing pressed the CIA at that meeting for information regarding Midhar and the Malaysia meeting, but the CIA representative denied them that information. It's a very specific finding in the staff report that there was a refusal to share that information relative to Midhar and Malaysia and as to why the CIA was tracking Midhar at a June 2001 meeting on a specific request of an FBI agent in New York. My question is, do you know why that CIA agent refused to tell the CIA agent what the FBI, what the CIA, let me start over. Do you know why the CIA agent refused to tell the FBI agent what the CIA agent knew when the FBI agent specifically said, why are you tracking Midhar?
We have, we're going to have a disagreement on the facts here. And here are the facts as I understand them. There were 3 people who left New York to go to Washington to go to New York that day. It was an FBI analyst from FBI headquarters, an FBI analyst from our counterterrorism center, and our analyst. They went up to discuss the Cole investigation. The FBI analyst from FBI headquarters brought the surveillance photos with her. And at the end of the conversation, and I've now talked to 2 of the people involved, Senator, the FBI analyst from FBI headquarters handed the surveillance photos to the New York field office personnel. There was some discussion about them. Indeed, they were talking about different people. Midhar was not who they were talking about in this meeting. When I asked our person at this meeting as to whether he was specifically asked about Midhar and Hazmi, he has no recollection of the subject ever being directed to him or ever coming up. So there's a factual issue here, and I've only talked to 2 of the people involved.
Let me read you the staff report. The CIA analyst who attended the New York meeting acknowledged to the Joint Inquiry staff that he had seen the information regarding al-Midhar's U.S. visa and al-Hazmi's travel to the United States, but he stated that he would not share information outside of the CIA unless he had authority to do so. That's what he told our staff. Do you disagree with that?
Sir, I've talked to him as well.
Do you disagree that he said that to our staff?
Well, no, I don't disagree. He said it to your staff. I'm telling you what
Did he
told
tell you something differently?
Yes, sir. He
Okay.
gave me a different
So
perspective.
he told
on the
you
meeting.
and he told our staff something differently.
Well,
okay.
but I think it's important, sir.
Yeah,
Just-
but our time is limited, so let me just keep going. That's the answer. He told you something differently from what he told our staff. Mr. Mueller, Director Mueller, at that June 11th meeting, did the FBI know that Midhar and Hazmi were at the January 2000 meeting of al-Qaeda operatives in Malaysia?
I don't believe they did.
All right. So we still don't know in June of 2001 what the CIA has known for 15 months. Director Mueller, after Midhar and Hazmi were placed on the watch list by the CIA on August 23rd now, 2001. Now they are on the watch list. It's August. It's less than a month before September 11th. The FBI opened an investigation on Midhar, but not on Hazmi. Why did the FBI, why did you not try to locate Hazmi?
My understanding is that the information related to Mr. Hazmi was included in the file of Midhar and that efforts were made to locate both of them.
Your understanding is that there's an effort made to locate Hazmi?
Let me just check. My understanding.
Okay. All right, I think that's something different from what is in our report, because the New York agent was asked to open an investigation on Midhar, not on both.
Well,
But-
my
okay.
understanding is that we made an effort to identify and locate both individuals regardless of whether or not the file may have been opened under one as opposed to the other.
All right. Director Mueller, without alluding to names, I want to talk to you about the individuals that were mentioned in the Phoenix Memorandum. There were 10 individuals that were the subject of a UBL, a Osama bin Laden-related investigation. How many of those 10? None of those now were hijackers, but some of them were standbys, perhaps, sleepers, perhaps, ready to participate, perhaps.
Well, we have no evidence of that,
All right,
Senator.
how many of them, in your findings, in your investigation, how many of the 10 people listed in the Phoenix report were part of the bin Laden conspiracy?
My recollection, we have subsequently identified one of those as being associated with Al-Qaeda. Let me just check 1 second. I would, I have not checked. It's a question I did not necessarily anticipate, so I have not gone and checked whether or not the investigations in each of the other 9. One I have in my mind was associated, we subsequently came to find, was associated with Al-Qaeda. As to the other 9, I don't believe we've found that they have, any one of them has been associated with Al-Qaeda, but I would have to check to make absolutely certain.
This is a very critical fact. You've got a Phoenix memo. You've got 10 people listed by that FBI agent. You have the visit to the apartment house. You've got bin Laden pictures all over the apartment. You've got the agent saying this should be shared with the CIA. It wasn't shared with the CIA, that information. You got 10 people named as going to flight schools. Great deal of suspicion.
Well,
and okay.
I think that is reading into that memorandum more than is there. We absolutely had an investigation going on an individual, a principal individual, and other associates. But in terms of, I think you have to take each of those individuals and weigh the evidence against each of those individuals.
I agree.
All of them were attending flight schools.
I agree. According to our information, as of May of 2002, 4 of those were under bin Laden-related investigations. Do you have any different information from that?
I would have to go back and determine. It may well be that they are the subjects under bin Laden. In other words, we could open a file and in the file identify the individual as possibly an associate or a subject that should be investigated for the possibility of being associated with bin Laden, but that is far different than having evidence and information that the person is in fact a member of Al-Qaeda or associated
How
with
many
bin
are
Laden.
still under investigation for a bin Laden-related matter?
Out of that Phoenix memorandum?
Yes.
At least 3.
I think this is highly significant information that you should be on top of. This, okay.
Well, Senator,
I'll just leave it at
we
that.
have a number of investigations going around the country.
No, I'm talking about that
in
Phoenix,
Phoenix,
memo. I'm
well-
talking about the Phoenix memo. Let me ask both of you. I've asked you, Director Mueller, to release the Phoenix memo to make it public, redacted, and to release the Minneapolis emails redacted, and they've not yet been released publicly. Why not?
Hold on 1 second. Senator, to the extent that there is no classification issue, we have no objection to them being released. My understanding is they're going through declassification.
All right. I've requested you to release them some time ago, and they should be released by now.
Well, I do
One
not
of the
believe
things
necessarily that we are holding up the declassification process, Senator.
Well, then who is?
Well, I would have to check in that, but I don't.
Well,
we
the
have not-
committee,
we have
the
not-
committee's asked for this too, by the way. This isn't just my personal request. The committee has asked for the release of these documents, redacted, made available to the public. If we want to change things, the way things operate around here, we're going to have to be open, and we're going to have to hold some people accountable. Last question. Director Tenet, how many people have been held accountable for failures?
I haven't held anybody accountable yet, sir.
Director Mueller, how many people have been held accountable for failures?
Well, it depends on your definition of accountable,
You-
but I would say that I have not held somebody accountable in the sense of either disciplining or firing somebody.
All right.
I have made changes in the result as a result of what this committee has found, and as a result of what we found in our investigation of what we did well and what we did not do well in the days and the months prior to September 11th.
If changes are going to be real and are going to stick, in addition to all the structural changes that you've talked about and all of the other things which you've described, we need openness. We need documents to be released, which should have been released by now, including the Phoenix memo and the Minneapolis emails. We've waited a year now for those. And I believe people who failed in their responsibilities have got to be held accountable. This is not a matter of scapegoating. This is a matter of accountability. There's been, I believe, too little effort made to pinpoint the responsibility. You don't even know the names of the people who are responsible for failures, and no holding people accountable. We're not going to have real change unless we have that. And I'll close with that.
May I respond to that, Senator?
I think you should.
Can I respond to that?
It's up to the chair, but I'd be happy to have
But when it comes to accountability, you take something like the Phoenix memorandum that came back into headquarters. There were two analysts and two separate units that looked at that. The procedures in place at that time did not require the unit chief or the section chief to review that particular memorandum. Now, I am not going to take in an analyst who is doing what she or he is supposed to do under those procedures and hold that person, quote, accountable.
I'm not suggesting you should. Only the
But what
people
I-
who you find failed. I'm not suggesting that if someone didn't fail, you hold them accountable. It's where someone in your judgments have failed. There should be some accountability. That's all that I'm suggesting.
But going back to accountability, it is important, I think, to recognize that we have to put into place procedures which assure accountability. And one of the things I mentioned in my opening statement was the requirement that the accountability be at headquarters as opposed to not being diffused in the field. So I think we are addressing accountability appropriately so.
I would ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, that my list of the CIA failures and the FBI failures relative to these matters be placed in the record at this time. Is there objection?